You talked about Last Chance U. We on this podcast series, we've done football up until this point, and that's just kind of seasonality of how we actually market too. So that's why we did that. But we knew we wanted to start venturing into other sports. But we've had Buddy on from East Mississippi. We've had Kiyoshi, who took over for Jason Brown from Indy, and so now going with cheer, our marketing team is like, oh, that's like way better than Last Chance U. And so, like you said, like initially you're thinking, oh, we'll get some of the Last Chance U, maybe viewers and the cheer community, but it's blown up, and almost anyone I talk to has watched it. And it was kind of fun to pick people's brain, like, oh, I'm going to talk to Monica, and what do you think I should ask her, and this, that, and the other. And everyone has an opinion, right? Because they just love it so much, especially my Texas family. But the question is, why? Why do you think why have people gravitated towards this so much?
I think several things, honestly. I think, first of all, one of the reasons that I even wanted to do it, because I'm a very private person, so putting my entire life out there is not something that I had in mind ever, but I felt like it was such a great opportunity to show what the team, these kids are just special. Their work ethic is untouchable. They work so hard. They have grit, determination. Greg even said, Greg Whiteley, the creator of the show, he said in one of his interviews, these are the toughest athletes he's ever filmed, and he's done a lot of different sports. So, that to me is huge as far as, showing respect to what we actually do, because it is very, very hard. And I don't think people know that side of cheerleading. So I think, you get a feel of that hard work that they have. The family aspect of it, cheerleading is a very, not just Navarro, but cheerleading in general is just a very accepting community. We love everyone. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, male, female, whatever. We will have each other's back till the end of the day, till the end of time. It's a very loving and accepting community. Everyone is welcome. Everyone supports each other. And of course, on the team, we fight like family, brothers and sisters, but we love each other really hard, and we'll always have each other's back. And I think that's very special when you have those types of teams and atmospheres. And then I think also, it showed, and I know Last Chance U does this too, so I'm not really sure if it was just the personality or what, but, it just showed these kids who really came from hard times and how that didn't stop them from, going out and, fighting for their dreams and being successful. I mean, these are really good kids that have overcome really tough circumstances. But the thing about cheerleaders is, we're very resilient. You knock us down and we get back up. And I think that's from a personality trait of most cheerleaders. Most every cheerleader that's ever come through my program, just very resilient.
Yeah.
And I think it gave hope. It just gave hope to people. I think people could see themselves in some of the kids. Mm-hmm. It gave them hope, inspired them. Hey, if they can do this, I can do this too. I can get my life back on track. I can go out there. I can do whatever you want.
But there's a lot to pull out there. One of it is the JUCO story, which you guys are a junior college, but I was talking to some NJCAA folks, because that's an official partnership of ours. And they're like, well, technically it's a club kind of, and you guys are kind of this alternate, atmosphere or stratosphere because of how successful you've been. But junior college stories are really unique. And you do have some of the similarities with Last Chance U, where you're like, man, that's a hard story, but a story of overcoming adversity. Coaches, and, our listeners are all coaches. Coaches often take on father figure roles or mother figure roles. You clearly do that with a lot of your athletes. Talking to Kiyoshi at Independence, that's a burden. And especially when you're working a lot and long days, these kids are going through shame and hurt, and they do get acceptance within your program. But I guess what I'd love to hear from you is, how do you handle the balance and challenge of being a mother figure to 40 to 50 people, sometimes new people, year after year after year, while also having your own family and relationships to manage?
I mean, it's tough. It definitely is a tough job, and you know, I, you basically have to be available 24/7. I'll get text messages in the middle of the night, phone calls if someone's, in need of help or whatever, they know they can call me. And the thing about it is my family has always been so supportive of, of my job and the team. They're like part of the family too. So some of the kids of course, they'll say, call me mom, and then they'll call my husband dad. So it's just one big family, and my kids understand. They just know that that's just part of the job. I have to, all coaches have to sacrifice. You sacrifice a lot of time, personal time from home, not just from family, but I miss, going out with friends. I miss birthday parties. I miss family events. I miss a lot of things to coach. But it's, in the end, to me, the rewards are worth it. And my family's on board. They see, what a difference that I'm able to make with these kids. They love the program just as much as I do. They come to the games. They support. They come to competition. It's just, my family's just included in my job, and they support it, because obviously if I didn't have their support, it would be very difficult to give up that time. But it's definitely a hard part of the job, because there are not just the kids on the team. I have, former kids too still reaching out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll need advice, or there's something's going on in their life that they just need someone to talk to. So it really is, it's just a 24/7 job. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your family, like you said, your family supporting you is a big deal. That helps you be successful. Again, for coaches listening, I think we did a poll a couple weeks ago. We're like, hey, what do you want to hear on our next podcast? What are some things you want to hear? There's a couple different responses, and I might touch on a couple of them, but one of them is like, just how do we win? How do we be successful, right? And your program has won and won consistently. And again, I think part of it is because your family's support has allowed you to do your best in it. But what attributes do you think characterize a successful coach specifically?
I think first and foremost, I always try to lead by example. Always, I don't mind picking up the trash. If there's trash left, I don't mind. I'll get down and clean whatever. I don't mind. I try to live my personal life the way I would expect them to. I try to, make the best decisions I can when I'm not at work, just like I do when I am at work. I plan ahead. I'm on time, early. I have, preparation for practice. I just do anything I would expect of them. I try to do 1,000 times better, because I want them to look at me and want to. The thing is, they want to make me proud. They don't want to disappoint me. It's yes, they might be a little bit scared of me, but they also, I think more so, don't want to disappoint me. And I think that's a huge part of it, building those relationships where they know that you care about them. They know you have their best interest at heart. We all have the same work ethic. We have a championship culture. We've already built that. That's been built. The expectation is super high, and they know that coming in. And occasionally some people don't make it. They're not cut out for that type of work ethic. But most of the people, they'll always, rise to the occasion. If you put the expectation out there, they're going to rise to the occasion. But you have to have that balance of discipline, hard work, and compassion. It's got to have the balance. And when the kids feel appreciated, and they feel like you really care about them, they're going to go that extra mile.
Yeah. Yeah. And your players are super motivated. And I think because of the types of athletes you have, you're getting at this point, and that might be something interesting too. Like at this point, you're getting cream of the crop. And I know that recruiting probably looks very different these days too, but compared to where you started, is it different motivating kids now? And even like recruiting kids now at the beginning of your tenure, where it was like have to prove yourself, to now where there's like national notoriety and there's a light on Navarro Cheer?
Oh, you have no idea. Let me tell you, I've been here for 25 years. So
Yeah.
I was only 22 years old when I started this job. I was younger than some people on the team. And so that's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah.
Not only that, I had never coached in my life. So I had no experience. I was 22. I was young and naive. I had a lot to learn. So, and I came in in December. I got hired in December. Well, really officially start date when school opened back up in January. But that was the last year that competition was held in Dallas, and
Okay.
it was during Christmas break. It got moved the following year to April in Daytona. But so when I came in, I was given the keys to a van to drive to Dallas, which a 14-passenger van. I had never done anything like that. To downtown Dallas. I had never driven in downtown Dallas. It snowed that weekend in Dallas, which rarely happens. But, so I meet this team, watch them practice, take them to Dallas. I don't even remember. I'm sure it was horrible. I got them there and back. That's the most important part. And that's how it began. So you can imagine I've come a long way.
Yeah.
And we had 14 people on the team at the time. So, back in that, a long time ago, back when I started, guys in cheerleading, they weren't as abundant as they are now. So usually, however many guys showed up to try out, I took them. Unless they were really bad, I took them. I went to the weight room. I tried to recruit guys out of the weight room. I recruited some of the girls on the team, their boyfriends that had played football in high school. It was tough. It was very tough. But, once again, resiliency, never give up, keep moving forward, learning as much as I could, not just on the coaching aspect of it, but also on the score sheet side of it, but also the relationship part of it, how to be a better coach, what works, what doesn't. And I still, at the end of every season, try to evaluate, what we did, what we could do better, what should be different as far as, anything, rules, discipline, different situations that happen, maybe how we could have dealt with those better. So, it's always, in my opinion, a learning experience, a learning curve. But, it was a huge curve because I literally knew nothing when I started.
I can't believe that. I didn't realize 22 and you were coaching. And you're a UT gal. And
Yes.
I have two family members who graduated from UT. One who actually just recently got, I believe, the same degree as you, finance from the business school. And he's now working in Dallas. And the UT business school is, talk about cream of the crop. It's the top of the food chain. And it was really one of the most interesting storylines about the show, kind of that impact that you've taken from your degree and utilized in coaching. And even your husband was talking about, like, she was going to be on Wall Street, man. Like she was destined for it. I think, and I'm going to plug my sister. She's like, you need to ask her how she's using that degree and how that impacted her coaching. So if you think back to 22-year-old Monica, were there certain things that you're like, hey, this concept, I learned this from the business school and I still use it, or it was one of my staples? Does anything kind of jump out?
Obviously, yeah, definitely a lot of things you learn say a management type class where you're managing employees. I mean, that's basically what coaching is. You're managing athletes. And so, you learn a lot of great things in management type classes, which obviously even though I had a finance degree, you have to take all the different classes. So any of those leadership style classes that I took, I tried to take everything that I had learned in those and, implement that into my program. And then, of course, I'm a score sheet. Back when I started, I don't think a lot of people really paid a lot of attention to the score sheet, which doesn't make sense to me because that's how you get your points to win,
That's how you
So
win.
I think I saw in the industry a lot of people just really focusing on, oh, how difficult can we make this, or this one area. So that was really my strategy from the beginning, being a finance major, a numbers person. I love math, I love numbers, and so that's kind of when I looked at my blank drawing board. I'm like, okay, what's our goal? To win. How do you win? You have the most points. How do you get the most points? Let's look at the score sheet. And I just go backwards, and I start analyzing every category, and then I really created our practices and our structure to be the best that we could in every single category, not one. And I felt like I feel like the industry has moved to that now, but back when I first started, I didn't feel like it was like that at all. Nobody really talked about score sheets, and I really focused on every single category to maximize the points that we could get.
We've seen it with a lot of sports, like this data revolution. And yeah, it sounds, and that was another big thing I remember seeing you do so well. And I think when we talk about like even decision making in general, it sounds like what I'm hearing is that you're very data driven. And I even, I'm rooting for Jerry. Like, Jerry better make the freaking mat. Please, Jerry, make the mat. But when you look back to like, how do you choose who's going to make mat? Is some of that like, and I think coaches are thinking, how do I go about just decision making in general? Is some of that instinctual gut, just go with your gut? Or is most of even who's going to make mat like very data driven? Like, who's going to help us get the most points?
It's a lot data driven. I tell the team, usually the first time that we meet as a team is in July, and we go to camp. And so from the first time that we meet, I always let them know, basically your tryout for making mat starts today. It's not a one-time thing. I'm watching your consistency is big because you get one shot. And if you can't make it through the routine and hit everything during that one time, then it doesn't matter what you can do here or there. I mean, so I'm really looking for consistency. I want to feel confident in what you can put out there for me. And so I watch everybody from day one and how they progress and how consistent they are in different situations, whether we're at a football game cheering. Are you able to, this might be kind of come out of your terminology zone, but when we're doing stunts, are you able to, I'll keep it simple, keep the stunt in the air, because a lot of times, what I tell them is, the one thing I can guarantee you is not everything won't be perfect. You're not going to have a perfect grip. You're not going to have a perfect, hold on something. It might not flip exactly right. So how are you going to fight through that and make it look like nobody will know? Like if you were watching it, you would have no clue that it was crazy. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to perfect and practice. So if the only time you can hold a stunt up in the air is when you have a perfect grip, then we have a problem. And so I'm watching kids as they learn and they progress, and are they able to handle, the bad grips, the bad, when it doesn't land just right, or different, or if we're doing tumbling, are you always landing on your feet no matter how good or bad it is, or are you falling here and there, or just things like that. I'm just watching for consistency. Number one, I'm watching your work ethic. I'm watching your stamina. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but going through an entire routine with what we do, because it's so hard, it literally is like death by the time you get done. I mean, it's like running as fast as you can for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Literally, I mean, as fast as you can. And so you just can't breathe. It takes a lot out of you. So we prepare a lot for it. But I'm looking for kids that have stamina, kids that are consistent, kids that have great work ethic, great attitude, great team player. Um, and most of them have all of that. However, it comes down to the nitty gritty. And so sometimes those choices are very clear, and sometimes those choices, it's, a heartbreaker. It could be anybody in that spot, or between a handful of people. And, those decisions are tough because you hate disappointing people, especially when they deserve it just as much as the person next to them, but you only have that one spot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much into choosing a starter in a sport. And I think Matt is like the equivalent for a lot of our listeners to like, who's your starter? And it does sound like there's a lot that goes into it, like on both ends of the spectrum. Like they need to have all these characteristics, and yet they also need to have the talent and ability to get you those scores. We're going to talk about film a little bit because that's what we do on the Chalk Talk. And this is something that you've, again, kind of helped pioneer in your world. But before we get into that, E-Team sponsor is not quite the same as Entertainment Weekly, who you did the rapid fire with. So I got my own flavor of rapid fire, which is just kind of fun. So some of these are like a little more philosophical, lofty questions, but you can just say whatever's first in your mind. Some of them are just a little more fun. So first one is, what's been the best moment in your coaching career?
Best moment. Oh man. So many. I'll have to go with this very recent that has to do with the show, but when Austin got hurt at finals, we had not ever experienced anything like that. So we were under a lot of stress when we had to go. We had literally 20 minutes or so to put someone new in to do this very complicated pyramid, and teach them where to go and everything. And as soon as they came off the stage after Austin got hurt, I could tell a lot of these kids looked defeated. That means some were crying because they thought there's no way we can come back and overcome this. This is huge. We don't have enough time. If we had time, but it was not on, time was not on our side. So, I was obviously hiding all my fear and emotions and, acting like, oh, we've got this, not a big deal. But for them to come back out and be able to do that routine, I mean, it was huge. It was huge to be able to do that because, number one, like I said, it's exhausting doing a routine. It's exhausting. When you go out there on finals, you're literally putting everything you have on the mat. You're leaving it all out there. You're not coming off that stage with an ounce of anything left because you have just poured everything you have. So imagine pouring everything you have out for half the routine or more, and then for it to be stopped, for your emotions to go so low, and then to have to come back out and do it again. That's very hard. And thankfully, our preparation it's a testament to how we prepare for this competition. But for them to come back out and hit that routine, I mean, one of the proudest moments I can think of. Yeah.
Like a documentary isn't like planned. And so they want there to be like a drama. And honestly, that ending, we're like, what the heck is going to happen? And I think I already knew. Like, I'm pretty sure I already had seen you guys, but I'm just like, what the heck is going to happen? It was so dramatic. And that part was really beautiful, like heading out into the ocean afterwards. Like y'all's tradition was awesome. I'm breaking away from the rapid fire because this is something that I'm passionate about. Our world's crazy right now. Mental health is a real thing. Anxiety is a real thing. I struggle with anxiety. You talked about it a little bit previously. How are you coping, and how do you cope? You're a leader. And leaders have to be positive and poised, and you project that very consistently. But internally, you've even said as much like, hey, not always feeling that. How do you manage that as a leader? A lot of leaders have anxiety, and they probably just aren't as courageous as you are to admit it. So how do you handle that as a poised leader?
Well, anytime I'm in a moment of pressure or something like major, like an injury like that, my mind, I go into business mode. Like, what's the plan? What are we, I don't even have time for my emotions to take over at that moment. So I'm strictly, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How are we going to get there? And on top of that, oh, and by the way, I got to make sure that they're emotionally good, So, I think that's just kind of like a personality trait of mine. I instinctively go into business mode and into, I am very aware that the mental part is such a big part of cheerleading that I'm always making sure that I have my, oh, this is perfect, it's great face on. And I also know that I do have that anxiety. Like, I get very nervous right when we're about to compete. So I remove myself from the situation. I will always go, okay, y'all, give them their talk and then go around to where I'm supposed to be early enough that they don't see the panic set in on my face. So I'm just very aware of how, my attitude and my body language and everything is going to affect them. So, I do everything I need to do to keep them where they need to be. And then I make sure that I don't show any of that in front of them. So I leave and go to where I need to go. But, I think just, you have to step up and take yourself out of whatever's going on and think about the role that you're playing at that moment when you're a leader, whether it's in practice and someone gets hurt, or whether it's in practice and something crazy is going on, or whether we're in a competition, and it's major, someone gets hurt and we're in a very stressful moment. You just have to, make sure that you're, have that role of strength, positivity, confidence. They need to know that you feel confident in them. You have to build their confidence, because especially cheerleading is such a mental game. It literally, we prepare physically to where we could do it in our sleep, but it's when they start letting their mind take over that we can make mistakes.
One of, I would say, blessings of getting to spend time with coaches the last few months, top coaches around the country, is learning from them, just for myself, selfishly. But one thing is very consistent. The best coaches I'm noticing are very self-aware, which isn't something maybe we talk about as much in some circles. You do, but there's a self-awareness there. The other thing that I heard and pulled out from that was the ability to remove your emotions from the situation and not be wrapped up into a crowd or a cry or chaos, and getting into, okay, how do I solve the problem? And even taking some personal time. That's interesting too. Hey, I'm going to walk around now. I've given my speech. I'm going to go freaking breathe outside, and needing that as a human. We're all human and we need that. Okay. Couple rapid fire. This is another East Texas question, probably for some East Texas family. Favorite restaurant in Corsicana?
Old Mexican Inn.
Old Mexican. Perfect. Favorite competition day ritual or routine for yourself? I know your team has a lot, but what's yours?
You know what? When we're at competition, I always pray before I leave my hotel room. Always.
Yep. I was a big pray during the national anthem. You gotta center yourself there. And then this is a fun one, because I just liked your husband. He seemed awesome. Number one way your husband supports you in your passion. What's the number one thing? You're he gives me a massage when I come home, or whatever it is.
Oh man, there's so many. He'll rub my feet anytime I ask him to.
That's the key.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, last thing. We got to talk about film before I let you run. So this is a big part of football, which again is kind of like what we've majored in for a long time, but we know it's a big part of a lot of sports. And to see it come out on Cheer when y'all were filmed was really interesting, and to see kind of your healthy obsession with it. So talk to us about film and your program. How important really is watching film for what you do and for the success of your team?
Absolutely. I think film is it's might be, the piece that puts it all together. I mean, we like to separate ourselves by really focusing on the details. We don't want to just be able to make it from the beginning to the end. We want it to look effortless. We want it to look beautiful. We want to put out this really difficult routine, but also make it enjoyable. And to do that, we honestly might spend an hour or even two on a transition, meaning walking from one formation to another, because I have an eye for things, and I like for it to flow in and out and be really seamless. And so, we spend a lot of time on the details. When you add the film into it, you take it to a whole nother level, because now the kids are able to see what I'm seeing. So me just explaining it to them is one thing, but I think anytime anyone sees themselves doing something, it's like an aha moment. They're like, oh, that's what you meant. My toe was not pointed enough. My arm was sticking out a little bit. Something that they just don't feel, or technically when we're talking about really difficult stunts and pyramids, we really use that a lot for just trying to figure things out. We will, pause, slow-mo, and we're looking at how someone grabs a person, or the timing, or is your body facing the right way. I mean, it's very important when we're learning. But once we've learned everything, it's just as important, because it allows us to clean everything up, and it allows the kids to see what I'm seeing and what I'm trying to tell them. And now, like I said, it just takes it to a whole nother level. And we video every day.
Yeah. And you probably, like, one of the things that I remember is, one, the details, like you're saying, like those little tiny details that you can't, maybe if you haven't seen them, you don't even feel them when you're participating. But the other thing I remember so much about film as a player was thinking, oh, I did really well there. That was great. And then I watch film and I go, oh, it wasn't quite as good.
Exactly.
Or I'll go, man, that was terrible. I'm the worst player. I did the worst thing. And then you watch film, you go, that wasn't that bad, And so, I guess last thing, how is it different? Because you probably didn't use film 20 years ago, right? Like, how much has film changed your program? You probably didn't use it every clip of practice like you do now, right?
Well, you're right. I didn't use it like we do now, because now it's so easy. Okay. But it's so funny, because back in the day, I had one of those big cameras that you put on your shoulder, the with the VHS tape in it.
Channel 7 News.
I mean, the kids still make fun of the kids from back in the day will still make fun of the big camera. But I brought that sucker to practice, and we didn't even have our own TV back when I started. We had to go into the laundry room and hook it up to the TV that was in the laundry room. And there might be kids in there washing clothes, and we're like, excuse us for a minute, we're going to watch this pyramid or something, So we've come a long way. Yeah. And obviously, because it's so much easier now and the technology is so much better, we can just use it, every single minute of practice if we want to. So
yeah. Well, that's so cool. Well, I know life is crazy. I know there's a lot going on. I'm happy for you. I mean, you're a stellar person and a brilliant coach. And there's something about you. I know you probably get it all the time from athletes and stuff. There's something about you that is just quite fascinating. And like watching the show, I'm like, this person is fascinating. I just want to know her more. Like, I want to soak up every bit of wisdom she has, because she's an incredible leader. When you can get a lot out of kids, when you can demand a high level and have them devoted, like love you, that is really unique. normally if a coach gets a lot out of a kid, they're like, man, coach is mean to me. But you, and obviously you're not, but you get this type of devotion from the athletes that is really inspiring. And so thank you amidst all that's going on. Thank you for giving us coaches across the country a ton of encouragement and inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.